to come here and to be waiting in a ER lobby for, up to 4 days is incredibly intense.
Tonight, a former Grand Chief is speaking out on a crisis in healthcare after waiting for days for a hospital bed.
We know that people died at these institutions. We know that children died at orphanages. So the question is, where were they buried?
Speaking with the special interlocutor after the findings of an unmarked cemetery in Winnipeg.
We're providing quality programs for children in the communities.
And training for youth in Nunavut to help with an after-school program. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Far away from his community and in pain, Matthew Mukash has spent 4 days in the lobby of a Montreal emergency room hospital. The former Grand Chief of the Grand Council of the Crees has been waiting for a room in an overflowing Quebec ER. Maricel Amador has more.
To come here and to be waiting in a ER lobby for, up to 4 days is incredibly intense. And for my grandfather, we just expected to have compassion and care just like any other patient would. But I didn't see that.
That's because when Jade Mukash and her grandfather, Matthew Mukash, left their community of Wupmukstu and arrived at the Montreal General Hospital on January 7th, there were no more rooms available. Matthew has been sick and experiencing worsening pain. He chose to speak Cree to his son, Picasso Mukash, who translated. After some tests, doctors told them that he was going to be admitted to the hospital, so he was moved from an examination room into the ER lobby, along with countless others waiting for care.
For us to speak up about what my grandfather's going through, it's not because we wanted special treatment for him, as former Grand Chief and Chief of his community. It's just, we know that with that title, we're able to speak for other people, and that's what's important to us.
A crisis is underway in the province, with certain emergency rooms reaching over 200% capacity. In a statement, a representative from the Montreal General Hospital acknowledged the issues of overcrowding and long wait times, and said the overcrowding in ERs can be explained, among other things, by a record number of patients occupying our beds while waiting to be transferred elsewhere in the network, and by a shortage of manpower. Right now, the emergency room of the Montreal General is at 145% over capacity. In December, the Quebec government adopted a controversial sweeping health reform law. It centralizes the healthcare system's decision-making under Health Quebec. The government said that it was intended to make the system more efficient.
I just kept thinking about my grandfather, and to be already sent out from his home community to a hospital is already difficult enough. And to see, the population just going through so much is it's really intense.
In a statement, Quebec Indigenous Affairs Minister Ian Lafreniere told APTN that he was following the Mukash situation closely and said, "Since I was informed, I have asked my team to contact Minister of Health Christian Dubé's team to obtain more information on the situation." On January 11th, Matthew was transferred to a hotel near the hospital until a room is finally available. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
To Labrador now, where the inquiry looking into the treatment, experiences and outcomes of Innu in the child protection system is set to resume. Formal hearings are scheduled for the end of this month. Hearings will be held in the Sheshashit and Natwashish Innu First Nations. Over 5 days, witnesses will testify about health and well-being, Innu history, and the impact of child welfare in Innu communities. The Innu say youth in provincial care lost their language and culture, and some youths died by suicide. Brian Harvey is the lead executive officer with the inquiry. He said there will be investigations into the deaths of 6 Innu youth.
By investigating these 6 specific cases of tragedy, there will be an opportunity not only to provide, as you can imagine, the families have had questions about what happened to their children. So of course, we're going to do what we can to answer those questions. But it's also hoped that by examining these 6 very different tragedies, the commissioners will be able to identify systemic issues that had a role to play in their tragedies.
Yesterday, we reported on the discovery of a cemetery that is believed to have existed on the grounds of a former orphanage in Winnipeg. Our reporter Sav Jones spoke with Special Interlocutor Kimberly Murray today for her reaction to the findings.
The recent discovery of an unmarked cemetery belonging to a former orphanage in Winnipeg is raising concern. The orphanage called Asile Rochot is believed to have buried some of the bodies of infants and children who died in their care on their former grounds between 1904 and 1948. It's believed over 1,200 to 2,000 children died during the 4 decades of its operation. We turn to Kimberly Murray for her reaction. She's Canada's special interlocutor for missing children and unmarked graves.
It's very common that there's mass unmarked graves in relation to all kinds of institutions across the country.
Murray points to Ireland, where the remains of children have been found on the grounds of other former Catholic orphanages.
We know that people died at these institutions. We know that children died at orphanages. So the question is, where were they buried? We know that Canada didn't pay to send children back to First Nations or their Indigenous communities. And so they were buried somewhere.
Records and sources contradict whether the human remains were moved after the orphanage closed. Murray says Indigenous leadership and communities should work with the current owners of the land where the cemetery is believed to be to have it searched properly.
There needs to be transparency to the search and accountability to Indigenous communities and any other community that may have had children taken to that orphanage.
Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And the National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors and others who might need support. That number is 1-866-925-4419. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Winnipeg today with a pre-election campaign message, Axe the Tax, meaning Justin Trudeau's carbon tax on fossil fuels. But Poilievre was also asked about searching Winnipeg area landfills for the remains of murdered and missing Indigenous women.
We think that every effort needs to be made to find the remains of murdered and missing Indigenous women and to protect Indigenous women from future violence. We also want criminal justice reforms that will ensure that First Nations and Indigenous people are safe and protected, just as all Canadians are. So we never have tragedies like this again. Thank you.
Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, Alberta hits a new oil output record, but some are worried about the environmental impacts.
We're in a time now where the people need to speak out and ensure that there is a human right to water.
Welcome back. The province of Alberta has set a new record for oil production. Over 4 million barrels of oil per day are now being extracted across the province. That's up 10% from 2022. The increase in production now puts Alberta ahead of China as the world's 5th largest oil producer. Oil sand oil extraction uses 3 to 4 barrels of fresh water for every barrel of oil produced. Keepers of the Water Executive Director Jesse Cardinal says that already low water levels will now be stressed further.
One frac is like millions of liters of water. So we're in a time now where the people need to speak out and ensure that there is a human right to water, because we are living in what is a petro state where their only focus is oil and gas and fossil fuel extraction, and it's really scary.
Still in Alberta, as the deepest of the freeze sets in, the city's Edmonton's mayor says the city's homelessness situation is at a breaking point. On Monday, Amarjeet Sohi will make a motion to declare a housing and homelessness emergency. The announcement comes after police dismantled 8 homeless camps that were deemed to be high risk. The mayor says the number of people falling into homelessness is exceeding the capacity of the social service system. The Innu Nation and its members have launched a class action lawsuit against the Government of Canada and the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's over the abuses and harms suffered by Innu at day schools that operated in Labrador from 1949 to 2009. The federal day school class action was settled in 2019, but the Innu were left out because they did not come under the Indian Act until 2002. Gregory Rich is the former Grand Chief of the Innu Nation, and he joins us now. Gregory Rich, thanks so much for being with us here.
Yeah.
Why was this class action launched now?
Well, over the past years, there has been settlements across Canada, but the Innu Nation and people in Labrador were excluded from these settlements, like residential school settlement, day school settlements, and so on. And I think it's time that the Innu of Labrador took them on themselves and tried to address this issue.
Like you mentioned, previous settlements didn't include Innu. What was the impact on the community?
Well, it was another blow to the Innu people, because in the past we have been excluded on some of the issues, and one of them was residential school settlement and a day school settlement, because Innu were very similar. The abuse was very similar of what happened to the students in residential schools and also day schools. The abuse was the same, the trauma was the same, and the consequences of that abuse was the same.
As a survivor yourself, are you comfortable talking about your experience?
Yes, I do. I feel comfortable, but I have to be careful of what I share, because the case is before the courts. And also at the same time, I witnessed this abuse happening in the schools where I was going with my classmates, and it was very, very confusing to witness it, because I enjoyed going to school, and after this abuse happened, my perspective on the school was different after what happened to me.
Gregory, what are your hopes for the outcome of this proposed class action?
Well, one thing for sure is that Innu people will be included, because they were excluded before, and hopefully the message will be sent out to both levels of the governments that the funding for healing is granted as well, and acknowledge that this happened in both schools, in both communities.
Gregory, Rich, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking time for us and sharing some of your experience.
Yeah, thank you.
After-school programming can be found in many towns across Canada, but in Nunavut's isolated communities, that can be tricky. One organization is helping train youth to help deliver such programming. Trevor Wright has that story.
Every winter, the Recreation and Parks Association of Nunavut program, Innu Moves, brings together youth leaders from across the territory to train them to lead after-school programming for elementary school students. Now in its 7th year, the association says about 350 youth have been trained in leadership development, first aid, and program planning.
Today, we're providing quality programs for children in the communities. We're also providing training, certification, and leadership and skill development for youth leaders. And we strongly believe that the skills that young people learn in recreation are transferable to many careers.
According to one youth, who's now the recreation coordinator in Igloolik, says these programs are essential in communities who lack other programming for kids.
It's very important because there's barely any after-school programs out here for the kids at school. And at least for 2 hours a day, they get to do something as a group. And yeah, it's very important for me as I see it, because growing up, we never had anything, only every summer.
Most recently, youth from 7 communities gathered in Winnipeg to receive after-school program training. The association says giving the participants opportunities to connect with each other is essential for having a healthy network of after-school programming in the territory.
And I think another lesson is to really believe in the youth leaders, and give them an opportunity to network with other kids around the territories that are going to be doing the same thing.
While the training can be delivered online, it doesn't have the same impact as it does in person, says Don.
It really expands what the youth leaders learn and what they actually will deliver in their community. And so I think it's absolutely beneficial, to bring them together.
Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Great program to highlight. Time for one last quick break. Coming up, new music by Attawapiscat's Adrien Southernland came out this week. We'll play some for you on the other side of this break.
Hopefully it come, he don't rest on the privilege. Hey, 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 hey. Smuggling his soul, but he's married to the land now. Hey, 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 hey.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Jamie Lewis shared with us a photo of a young man who has been dancing since he could walk, performing here in full regalia in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. For a chance to have your photo shared here, send your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +3 with snow in Halifax, -2 in Fredericton, 5 below in Kuujjuaq, -1 in Nain. +2 with snow in Montreal, flurries and 6 below in Val-d'Or. -7 with flurries in Sault Ste. Marie, 0 with snow in North Bay. -14 in Thunder Bay, 19 below in Sioux Lookout. -23 for God's Lake and Norway House. 19 below with snow in Winnipeg, -23 and flurries in Dauphin. 31 below with snow in Regina, -35 for North Battleford, -33 in Meadow Lake, 35 below in Uranium City. In northern Alberta, -38 in Fort Chipewyan, 36 below for Fort McMurray, -40 in Red Deer, 28 below in Lethbridge. -6 for Vancouver, sun's out and 21 below in Kamloops. -27 under sunny skies in Prince George, -23 in Smithers. 42 below for Old Crow, -43 in Mayo. -35 for Yellowknife, 39 below in Wrigley. 29 below in Sax Harbor, -37 in Fort McPherson. 16 below with snow in Whale Cove, -19 and flurries in Arviette. -27 in Resolute, 3 below with snow in Iqaluit. Iqaluit, a real hot spot this week. Well, people continue to mourn the death of former NDP leader Ed Broadbent, who passed away Thursday at the age of 87. Broadbent was the leader of the NDP from 1975 to 1989. Frances Abel is a professor of public policy at Carleton University. She was also Broadbent's partner when he passed. Abel says one thing people may not know is that amongst Broadbent's many accomplishments, he played a critical role in getting Section 35 Indigenous rights added to the Constitution in 1982.
The Indigenous movement and Indigenous spokespeople had convinced the NDP caucus and the leader of the justice of their position. And their political action, the Constitutional Express, other things, produced political pressure on the process. Ed was able to play a pivotal role in insisting on Section 35 because his support and the support of the NDP premiers was needed in order for patriation to go ahead.
And before we go tonight, musician Adrien Southernland is known for writing about what life is like living in Attawapiskat, an isolated First Nation on James Bay. He's been working hard on his second album and dropped a new music video this week for his song Precious. Here is part of it.
This land is precious. Home your heart for the man in the village. Hey, 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 hey. Conflict come, he don't rest on the privilege. Hey, 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 hey. Smuggle his soul, but he's married to the land now. Hey, 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 hey. If you wanna put him down, you gotta put him in the ground, y'all. Hey, 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 hey. Whoa, now sit up. Where you gonna run to?
Released on March 15th. I'll always remember being in Saskatoon with Adrien for what was supposed to be the Junos. shooting an episode of Face to Face on the day the world literally shut down for the COVID-19 pandemic. Quite a day. You can watch that episode of Face to Face and find much more over on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. That's going to do it for us here on this Friday. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.